Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket tens. This is a blind versus blind hand. And of course, I flopped big, but I still am curious about overall play, especially with various ranges. So folds around a small blind who limps. I raise with pocket tens. This is anytime we get to a blind versus blind range, blind versus blind range in the big blind, I'm going to be raising something like this. So I've got big cards. I've got some speculative cards. I raised it up to 5. I don't know. I've been finding myself raising up to 4 or 5. In this case, I raised it up to 5. Really, no reason why. Just yeah. Usually, I could do the yeah. Sometimes I raise to 4. Sometimes I raise to 5. No real reason. If I'm in position like this, I could lean more towards 4. If I was a small blind, I'd probably lean more towards 5 and just hope to try to take it down. So villain 4 calls, and that kind of gives us a problem because I don't really have a good range for him. He's playing 25-6, which I don't think he's going to be way too wide. It's that I don't think this is like 100% of hands that he's playing. And when we look at his small blind stats, he's playing 28%. Problem though is that he doesn't seem to raise, so he's got a limp and call a raise one time. Limp with previous limpers, 40%. So I think he kind of limps. If there's other people limping in, he will, but there really isn't like a limp first in stat. Like this is, I guess, first time that this has happened for him. Now, when he limps and calls a raise, I do think that kind of helps to narrow his range down. So he could have a pretty big range, but then, and I'm going to exclude like 10s plus, ace jack, suited, ace queen, because I kind of feel like he would have raised those pre-flop. I think most people raise those pre-flop. This guy might be more on the passive side, so maybe not. But I kind of feel like most people raise those, and that means that when he limps and calls, he's going to have something speculative like this. So this is the range that I'm going to go on. This might be way too big for him, but maybe not big enough for some other players. Flop comes out a monster for me, 10-4-4. Villain checks. I do think I bet here. I think I'm betting most of my range. I do have, he has 10s, but so do I. When we look at my 10s, I think we could be betting with overcards. We could be betting with clubs. I think we're going to be finding ourselves betting quite a bit. So I've let out half pot. And I almost went a little larger because his fold to C bet stat when out of position is 36%. Maybe he doesn't want to fold. Same thing, 40% on the turn. Maybe he's a person that doesn't want to fold on the flop or the turn. And then he would fold the river. So I almost sized up a little bit, maybe to like 7.5 as a bet, but I didn't. I did 5 big blinds, and then he check raised me. So at this point, when he checked raised me, I kind of think maybe he has a 4, maybe he has some sort of overpair that he chose not to bet. I have most of the 10s out there, so at this point, I'm not quite sure what else he could have other than maybe like a 4. So I definitely called. Turn was a 5, and he bet again. So I'm just trying to focus on how do I make the most money. He bets half pot. I call. River's the king of clubs. Villain checks. I fired out full pot. Kind of think that maybe if he was betting the club, he now hits the club, he's going to check and hopefully go for the check raise or something like that, where maybe he hit his hand. Just going to make it look like, hopefully, kind of bluffy that I want him to fold. I think if he has jacks or queens, then yes, I think he would call. Note, though, that I kind of assumed he would have raised those, but they're not technically in his range. But if I assign a weight and say, well, maybe that's like 20% chance that he has jacks and queens, then yeah, it's possible. So I shove, he calls, so we're going to get to see his hand. But what does GTO say? So GTO has him checking, which I think he should, and then it's on us, and we're betting here. Oops, has him checking. We're betting about 58% of the time, and you can see that it's the middle cards that we're really not going to be betting. I think I probably would be betting these because I find a lot of people folding, but against this player, 38% fold out of position. Maybe it is right to play it slower with those middle pairs. Definitely the bottom pairs we're betting those as bluffs. We're betting a lot of these aces, especially the clubs hands here, and also the heart because we've got backdoor straight draw. Same thing, kings, not as much as our aces, but it does look like we're betting quite a bit. Ace king, ace queen, ace jack, we're using some of these as check behinds to protect some of these middle cards. The pairs we're also protecting. I mean, villain did call, so it is possible that he's got a 10, but you know, I wouldn't necessarily say he has fours. So we did bet, and then villain's going to raise 11.7% of the time. And when we look at his raising range, he's got basically fours. Some of these backdoor straight draws. So he raises. I have zero like re-raising ranges. I'm just calling here. So I think we played this well. So I called that. Now villain bets out 20. Now when we look at what range he's betting out, he's got some of these aces, ace little that he's using as bluff. So he's got, you know, on here flush draw and gut shots. He's got some, of course, quads. He's got trips here. He's got like middle cards that he was using. So 7-6 is, you know, open ender. 8-6 gut shot. 8-7's gut shot. Some bluffs here, so he does bet, and then GTO has me calling again, so I think I'm pretty good against this GTO range, including my 10s. So then king of clubs comes out, and now villain checks 11%, which really, like, what hands does he do that with? Queen jack 6-4. So he does check, and then it's on me, and bet 87, basically shove all in. Yeah, we're doing that with tens. It says we do that with queen jack. I'm not so sure against a player that gets to this. I kind of feel like he's gonna call if I shove all in like that. But we're shoving big hands, flushes. I think I would have shoved flushes too if I had it. So I did shoved, and he's really only calling like queen jack. I mean, yeah, he's got flush, three of a kind. Two pair here, king. So he did call. So this assumes he plays GTO. Did he play GTO? We did see the showdown, so he shows king 10 offsuit. So we had it in his opening range, but we don't have it here. Like, he doesn't have king 10. So the question is, where did he went wrong? So we went bet, and then he raised, king 10. So I think what we're gonna have to do is adjust these, and then see how this plays out a little bit differently. So he raised us with a 10, and I'm gonna assume then, since he raised us, he'll raise us with all of those pairs, with all of the 10s, which again, man, there's only 110 left in the deck, and he had to have it. I also think what we'll do is kind of add some of these. And just say he would have raised. I mean, maybe aces and kings. Maybe he's going to play a little tricky with those. But I don't think that changes. Yeah, I don't think that's going to change his ranges. Fours, 10. All right, so we're going to have to rebuild the tree here. And what we'll do is we'll run the solver. I'll make sure his check raising range includes those 10s, like all the top pair hands, and then we will come back. All right, we are back. It took a while to run these. So we're still betting. And then we have villain raising us. So now it's back on us. We could have a 3-bet here. A small percentage of time. Definitely not quads, but we could 3-bet with our full house, with our jacks or queens or kings or aces. We could definitely 3-bet with probably plan to get it in with the club. So I'm sure if I raise and he shoves over the top, yeah, we're calling with our club. So I mean, I think that's a valid play. If we raise, yeah, we're still calling even with our overpairs. I think though, if we get into a situation, especially at these stakes, I believe this is 10 and L. I think we're probably way behind. If a player does that, I'm not sure if jacks and queens is going to be good. Definitely not jacks. We may be up against queens. We could be up against kings. We could be up against, already full house or trip fours. So he raises. Our call's perfectly fine here. He leads out, and he is leading out a small percentage of the time with his 10. So that leaves us to call with our hand, with our full house. So we did call, and then villain's checking, and he is going to be checking those times. He does have the 10, maybe even king 10 as well. So now we still just kind of fire. So it looks like we are playing, and then villain's going to be calling somewhat with his king 10. So that kind of works out. Still doesn't change how we play. So I'm kind of glad we had it this way. I'm not sure if we're going to go in and try different cards, because I don't think different turn cards matter with how we flopped. I think what could matter is the actual board itself. What happens if we didn't flop a 10? I kind of think that if we had, let's say, kings, we bet here, he raises, you can see that we are probably going to be calling here. And then when he bets, our call again, when we look at it, yeah, we're probably going to be forced to call with the kings. And then when he checks again, or when he checks on the river, yeah, we're firing, we're betting it all. And here you can see we're not doing it with queens, we're not doing it with jacks, although we were calling pre-flop with those overcards, including like ace 10, king 10. We're not gonna go ahead and shove it in at this spot. We're just gonna take the showdown, because there is the chance that villain has those fours, has trip fours. There's a chance that he does have like some other bigger hands going on, especially like your ace 4 type hands. So all right, hopefully you enjoyed this hand. Glad I won it, glad I hit it. If you enjoyed watching this, tomorrow for another.